But let's start it off here with two big names. First QB off the board, Alex. Would you rather have Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes? Lamar Jackson ended as the QB1. Mahomes is the QB8. Missed a couple games. I believe it was 2 games with that knee injury that he suffered against Denver on a Thursday night football game. But who are you taking between those two guys? If you're drafting today in a redraft league and you want to take a quarterback off the board early, which one of those are you taking?
I mean, I might be a little biased here because I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan, went to school with him back at Louisville, but my guy's Lamar Jackson. He's the reigning MVP. He ran for 1,200 yards in only 15 games last season. As a quarterback, we all know that rushing yards are essentially a cheat code. So with that rushing baseline, if you just took Lamar Jackson's rushing stats from 2019, that was 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. That is equal to 4,000 passing yards or 40 passing touchdowns. So take whatever he does through the air, and you're just stacking 4,000 yards or 40 passing touchdowns on top of that. And to me, that just takes him over the top. I know we've got a couple other mobile quarterbacks, like Kyler Murray's talked about a lot. Dak Prescott, I think, finished as the quarterback too. Patrick Mahomes himself is a bit mobile as well, but nothing has ever come close since maybe Michael Vick to what we've seen out of Lamar Jackson. He led the NFL in yards per carry with 6.9 yards per carry. And I think in 2020, he could easily beat that record he set for quarterback rush yards. He only played 15 games this year. And he also sat out the fourth quarter of several blowouts. And then in a lot of those games, even in the third quarter, they were handing it off to Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards a lot of the time because the game was out of hand. So to me, I mean, we could talk about his passing and people say, oh, he's an accurate passer. He can't throw to the numbers or outside the numbers, all those sorts of things. But to me, I mean, 36 passing touchdowns this past season, over 3,000 passing yards. He doesn't have to be a Patrick Mahomes, a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady, a Dan Marino through the air with what we've seen from his legs. So I do expect that 36 passing touchdown number to come down a bit in 2020. He was very, very effective with that touchdown rate. But even if he gets around, 25, 30 touchdowns and he's able to up the passing yards number from 3,100 and up those rushing numbers a little bit, which might be asking a lot, but I think he can do it. There's no reason to believe he shouldn't be quarterback 1 in fantasy again in 2020.
Yeah, you bring up some good points, but I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. I'm taking Mahomes. Hate to go against my boy Lamar, but I have to do it here. Even though Mahomes finished as the QB8, he had a 66% completion percentage, still finished 10th in passing yards, and he had some dud games at some different points this season that were just kind of some weird game scripts where the Chiefs went up big early, didn't really need him to throw a ton. 26-5 touchdown to interception ratio. He also finished 4th in yards per attempt at 8.3. So we look at Lamar Jackson, we look at Patrick Mahomes. These guys are almost on different ends of the spectrum when it comes to, where they make their hay, where their sweet spots are. But you got Mahomes averaging 20.5 fantasy points a game in 2019. You're not going to pass that up. And, yes, the kind of low-hanging fruit, if we want to go against Lamar Jackson, is, mobile quarterbacks, they're more likely to get more injured. Maybe Lamar's not the biggest guy, but I hate to take this away from Mahomes here as I'm kind of making an argument for him, but Mahomes has actually been more injury-prone and has missed more time than Lamar Jackson has. So you can't really make that argument there. So if we look at that, a lot of people forget that Mahomes has had a pretty high rushing baseline in previous seasons. This was his lowest rushing year out of the 2 full seasons that he's played, with only 218 rushing yards. He had that knee injury that obviously took him out of 2 games, essentially 3 games, because he only threw 11 passes versus Denver. But we saw in the postseason, whether it was against the Titans on one of those huge breakaway runs or in the Super Bowl when he's, taking it in himself in the red zone, Mahomes should also increase his rushing floor as well, which is just going to be even more value getting him as the first QB off the board. Good news in terms of that injury, there's been no structural damage to the knee, so I'm not worried about it long term. He actually went to practice every single day during that injury, so that's not a concern for me. And then you look at Mahomes' weapons. I know Lamar has some great weapons and the offense is built, around his skill set, but same for the Chiefs, right? And then you give him Tyreek Hill, maybe the fastest, most explosive wide receiver or just overall weapon in the entire NFL. You give him give Mahomes the best receiving tight end in the league with Travis Kelce. And you get a little, Super Bowl experience. You got a little bit extra clout now. You say, hey, we've been there. We've done this before. We've been down 3 scores in an AFC championship game and brought it all the way back. I mean, what more can you say about Mahomes? He's a generational talent. I don't think you can pass up on him. And, just like you're saying, right, like Lamar's upside could be higher. I think you can say the same for Mahomes. What's to say he doesn't put up another, 5,000 passing yard, 50 touchdown season like he did in 2018 when he took the league by storm and won MVP. So I'm taking Mahomes on this one. Alex, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I actually had written in my notes was that if Mahomes can throw for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns in 2020, which, I mean, 5,040, that's something we've seen him do before. We've seen him get the 50, so it's something I actually expect him to do if he stays healthy for the whole season. And if he's able to do it, I expect it to be really close between him and Lamar Jackson. One thing I'm really looking for with the Ravens offense, though, is to get some more weapons around Lamar. When you think about last year, you had Hollywood Brown, who was a rookie, and he was banged up for a lot of the season. Mark Andrews, the tight end, was his best weapon all year long. But outside of that, he's throwing to Miles Boykin and Willie Snead and Chris Moore, and some of these guys are holding it down all right. But if they can bring in another receiver to help out Lamar Jackson, and then Hollywood Brown can stay healthy and continue to take the top off defenses, yeah, he might not be Tyreek Hill, but he's Tyreek Hill light. I think that could really help Lamar Jackson through the air get some higher passing yards numbers and allow that offense to be even more dynamic than we saw in 2019. So I love everything you said about Mahomes. He still does have some mobility himself. In the playoffs, we really saw that mobility come to life with his legs. And I think it's going to be close, but I got to still lean with my boy Lamar.
It seems like the experts around the fantasy world are having this debate as well, right? We look at Fantasy Pros ADP right now that was updated on March 13th. We see that, Lamar and Mahomes, their best ADP is, the first QB off the board. Their worst is both tied at the third QB off the board. So I don't know who's putting either of those guys at third, but, it's going to be an interesting one nonetheless. I think it's really, we're kind of splitting hairs here, really, when it comes down to it. Both of them are going to be fantastic options. And if you play right in your draft, maybe you land one on your team.